Microsoft could ship 4 next-gen consoles. Which would you choose? Yes, that's right. 4 next-gen consoles. It seems kind of bizarre to say Xbox might be working on 4 next-gen consoles, but the reality is they actually might be. And so a user over on Reddit threw out this theoretical question, which I think is worth diving into here, because when you distill it down to all the options, they all make sense, but which, at the end of the day, would you choose? And I think there's a lot of variables that go into this, and so let's just kind of dive into the meat of the content here. And yeah, look, these would be the 4 potential Xbox next-gen consoles. Let's kind of dig in here. So you have the Series X2, which would be the second generation Series X, which, by the way, we have no idea what Xbox is going to call these things. They have no sort of consistency. It is the essence of Microsoft to just sort of throw names out of left field, right? We had Xbox, Xbox One, Xbox 360, Xbox Series X, Xbox One X. Like there's no real consistency here, other than maybe X being the most powerful variant of the flavors that Microsoft delivers. So you'd have a Series X2, a Series S2, a Series C, which would be cloud, and then the user called this the portable option the Series P. And so when I said there's 4 potential options, it kind of makes sense. I know initially you might be thinking, what 4? But you have the 2 existing, right, just revs of those. The cloud console, which we already know was a thing, but they never shipped / canceled. We're not really sure if they will ever ship it. And then also the handheld. So when you throw all that together, that's 4 different items here. So let's sort of dive into each one. So the Series X2 is described as a living room PC with a console experience. Play Xbox, Steam, and Epic, and more. 4K 60 frames per second. So the interesting thing here is obviously the Steam and Epic, which has been sort of rumored that Microsoft might be trying to work this scenario so that you could play it on a console. There's a 1.5 million questions, by the way, about making just make Steam and Epic work. Like, is there Xbox integration with Steam and Epic? Probably not. It's probably more vanilla PC experience. I can't imagine that Steam is going to give up any sort of control over the PC gaming space, if you will. But either way, the one downside here is the 4K 60 frames per second, which if we kind of remember was actually the promise of the Series X, was like 4K 60 was the target. And we're not, some games get there, some games exceed it. I guess, it's worth saying that some are higher, but I think we both know that you're either choosing high frame rate or high fidelity. Like, just kind of pick one. So the Series 2 would be a very similar experience to what we have now on the Series S. And again, same thing, S2. However, it would be cheaper, obviously, and following that same hybrid experience, but then also 1080, 60 frames per second, which again is sort of what we thought this generation would be. But however, it's worth noting that, first you don't succeed, rev, and refresh or something like that. But anyways, so that would be the Series S2. Then the Series C would be the traditional the expected cloud console, where you just have a little box and then you have a controller and it just connects directly to that, trying to short circuit the latency that sometimes happens in these scenarios where you don't have a dedicated box and it connects directly through Bluetooth to a TV or something like that. However, the reason why I think this one may not ever exist is because there's that new controller that's coming that will connect directly to your Wi-Fi, much like I have a Stadia controller around here somewhere, much like the Stadia controller did, which would seem to potentially improve that latency experience over the Bluetooth that we have seen, with experiences today where you just got to connect it to a TV because, hey, they don't contain the Xbox protocol and all that stuff. I don't think any of them do natively. It's possible, but I can't see TV manufacturers adding that. So yeah, then you've got the elusive yet thing we think is coming, Series P handheld console. So obviously with a nice little Fable screen there, you probably could have put a Valve on there, right? That's launching here in the very near future. And so a dedicated handheld Xbox can also be connected to a TV or monitor for a full screen experience. So very similar to a Switch. I would guess it would just be something like a dock at the end of the day. And so when you think about all these things, like, it's, what is the natural reaction on Reddit? And I also posted this on Blue Sky and Twitter. The very honest reaction is obviously you're picking the most expensive things. So most people are saying they would pick the X2 and the Series P, which if you're an Xbox or gamer fan in general, that makes the most sense, right? You get the highest horsepower PC experience on your biggest TV, or typically your biggest screen in your house. And then you can also take it on the road if needed. The real interesting question would be is if the Series S2 and the Series P have the same level of performance, because that could be very enticing for people as well, where if you're just picking one device, then the Series S2 may not make as much sense, and you just pick up a Series P, you dock it, and if you can get 1080 60 in that form factor, that would be pretty cool, right? That would be pretty good. That would be a very viable option at that point. However, you wonder about battery life and other things, right? Because when you start trying to get those higher frame rates, something's got to give, and it's usually horsepower or performance or heat or battery life. You can't have all three. I guess they could shove like a 720p screen in there, and that would maybe allow that to happen. And then when it's docked, then they could, I don't want to say overclock, because that would be when people say overclock from the factory, that just means that's the normal speed. Like the factory does not overclock. You, the individual, overclock over the processor. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. So I think, I don't think Series C is probably on too many people's list. That's more because here's what this boils down to. Let's slap some pricing on here. Like, what would the pricing be for something like this? Now, this is like a bit of a shot in the dark, but I don't think these prices are probably too crazy. So I think Series X2 at a $599 price point, that may not be all that crazy. I mean, look at the PS5 Pro. We've already known that the prices never really came down this console generation. So $599 for Series X2, at least for the entry level, might not seem unrealistic. There's already a Series X at that price point. The Series S2 at $399, right? I would love to think they're going to drop that price more, but like $299 would be the sweet spot. But again, let's be real here. We haven't seen prices exactly coming down quickly and or at all. Now, the Series C, $99 is actually probably high for that thing to even stand a chance, in my opinion, only because a controller, and it'd probably be tough, actually, now that I think about it, because the controllers Microsoft typically sells like $49 for the bare bones if you find it on sale sort of thing, which means that console has to be $50. Or that box, I don't even want to call it a console. So maybe $100 works. I don't know, but whatever. And then the Series P, $699. That's right around the target range that we're seeing some hands on. Now, the one outlier that I'm sure people will point out is the Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck obviously has lower price points. I don't know if Microsoft's going to be willing to like fall on the margin here to ship a lower priced product. So $599 for the Series P, it's going to come down to performance and what's inside. But you got to remember that compared to everything else, the Series P has a screen. So like there's more cost there. It also has a battery. So there's more cost involved. So you got to trade performance, dollars, and power for pricing. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, the other thing that's not really discussed here, at least in the background, is what if the Series P was actually running an ARM chip? And that's a whole nother conversation for another day. So with these price points, and first off, I'd love to know, like, do these price points seem unreasonable? I don't personally think they do, but I'm sure you guys will have no problem telling me. Me personally, people who follow this channel long enough would know that I would definitely pick the Series X2. I don't know if I would grab a Series P. I'm not much of a mobile gamer, and so I'd just like to sit on the couch. I'm an old school, put my butt on the couch, turn the console on, and just play there. I don't play games mostly anywhere else other than on my couch and at home. So, but I get why people might only choose the Series P. Again, I think it would come down to performance level or just what you actually have available at home, right? If you have a packed house with a bunch of kids or brothers and sisters and you only get one device, the Series P actually makes a lot of sense as long as the performance is there and the battery life is reasonable. Now, the Series S2, here's the thing I'm going to be watching for when Microsoft launches their next-gen consoles, right? Oops, wrong button there. The next-gen console stuff. Was the Series S a mistake? I'm not saying that it is, right? We all know that it has sold more. Microsoft did this dual sort of SKU mentality, right? They had this more powerful console and then the less powerful console. What happens next gen, right? Microsoft obviously learned a lot from shipping the X and the S at roughly the same time. I know they launched a little staggered, I believe, but roughly the same time. What did they learn? Did they learn that, hey, we shouldn't do that because it's a confusing strategy? Or did we learn like, hey, this is the right strategy and we should continue this? I don't have a firm answer for that. I don't think the Series S was a mistake. I mean, I have a Series S. I use it all the time. It's perfectly fine. But the question is like, was having the lower price worth it for the game trade-off compared to just having a Series X? I don't know. I don't have that answer, but when we see the next generation consoles launch, if they don't do the dual SKU strategy, then we'll probably have learned like it probably was not worthwhile for what they did. However, there's like information floating around now that the Series S is going to align to the capacity of the Series P, if that's what we're going to call it, or maybe Series H for handheld. So that would make a lot of sense because like if it can run a Series S, then it can run on the handheld. Bada bing, bada boom, you're good and you're golden. But we'll see. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think. Like, which of these, of the SKU lineup would you pick? Is there anything that's missing that you'd be like, that sort of get me over the hump? Or, you know, what else you got floating around in your noggin? As always, my friends, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the BS on this channel is me.